Like, move up to the front. There's like 12 people in the room. Let's get comfortable. Or just sit back awkwardly and I'll just stand here in silence and be like, all right. I'll just start because this is actually a 1 hour talk and I'm going to give it in 30 minutes at the end of the day. So my name is Ethan Levy. I am here to give a talk called Game Design is Business Design. This is about the 7th time I've given some version of this talk. I gave it originally at the East Coast Games Conference. I gave it at GDC Europe. Next month I'm giving it GDC Online. I've given it for companies Epic and Six Waves and the San Francisco IGDA. And just real quick, I'm 10 years as a game designer and producer. I have worked on games for just about every platform in the past 10 years, over 20 shipped titles that I've contributed to. Intern and test is where I started. I've done a lot of consulting, metrics and user analysis, game design, lead design, game production. Most recently, I just wrapped up 4 years at EA BioWare, where I was one of the first people at a studio called EA2D that then became BioWare Social. I was the producer on 3 Dragon Age games there, most notably Dragon Age Legends for Facebook. Those 3 Dragon Age games have had over 50 million plays between them, and then I kind of rounded it out as design manager at that studio. Excuse me, I'm a little sick. I left in April. I'm the co-founder at this new startup called Quarter Spiral. Very early, I can't tell you too much about it, but if you're an indie game developer and you like what I have to say, please come introduce yourself to me at the end of the talk. I'd love to just get to know you and get to know your products, because our mission is to change game publishing. And yeah. So like I said, this is a 1 hour talk originally. I'm going to give a truncated version, so I just put together this little thing where I can skip around. I think I'm going to skip over the Katy Perry section of the talk today. That's there you go, Katy Perry. I've got a cool story about why business models are important, but if you're here, you probably already know as a game designer, business models are important. So quick show of hands, who in the room is a game designer by profession right now? And keep your hand raised if you're credited as designer on at least one released product. All right, pretty good. Free-to-play product? All right, cool. So you guys have some experience. Hopefully everybody in the room can get something out of this talk. The point of this talk is to empower game designers to incorporate business model thinking into their game design. A lot of times I feel like there are game designers and there are product managers, and maybe there's a producer in between who's supposed to moderate, or maybe the product manager is up top. But my general experience has been that when there's a separation between a game's design and a game's business model, the business model will fail. If you just kind of throw it in on top of the game design, or the game designers don't really listen and don't really, I've talked to people who I would say are like ashamed of business design thinking. Their game fails financially. And on the other hand, if you're purely product management driven, your game might not be all that fun. And so the goal of this talk is to educate game designers so that they can incorporate business thinking into their practice, because that will make them stronger designers in a freemium world. And it will also, what I like to say is, when I was a producer, right, my job was to say no a lot of times. Probably 99% of the time, because everybody on the product has features they want to pitch, and our development resources are extremely limited. And on a freemium title, the features we could say yes to were the ones we thought would help us make more money. And so if you're a designer and you're in that frustrating spot where you're constantly pitching ideas and you hear no over and over and over again from the people who are in charge, a good chance is because they don't think whatever's important to them right now, your feature will help, whether it's making more money, increasing engagement, increasing virality, right? So this talk focuses specifically on monetization. So first, let me talk about emotion. Emotion is the key to monetizing a freemium game. In most freemium games, unless it's a shareware model, you don't need to pay for anything. And in fact, if you're a patient enough player, in general, you can get everything for free if you're willing to invest enough of your time. But people still end up spending, and they spend a lot. And when they do, it's because the game has tapped into some emotion, right? It's not a logical decision to buy in a freemium game. It's an emotional one. So I'm going to highlight 7 games that I think do a particularly good job of monetizing based on emotions. And what I'll say is these aren't the only 7 emotions out there. Any emotion can probably be monetized in a freemium game. The whole point of this is to think about this from an emotion framework when you're designing your game and when you're designing your especially your monetization, and to figure out what emotions you want to tap into. So first I'll talk about impatience. Lots of social and mobile games use impatience. I think War Commander by Kixeye is one of the best. So it's a game that bears a lot of resemblance to the classic Command and Conquers, both in art style and in gameplay. It's by a local studio here, Kixeye. And if you notice, so in this game, you build bases, you build troops, you go and attack other people's bases. In the bottom left, it says Barracks, Academy, and Dozer. Those are the 3 actions I can take at any one time. And I can take each one of those actions synchronously, and you can see there's a little timer on each. So let's say I want to build a barracks. Right? I click on Barracks. I've got this nice UI that's got some pretty good points to it, especially if I skip over it. I like how it's got the use resources and spend money button right next to each other. That's very important. But if I try and build a barracks when my dozer is busy, it tells me your dozer is busy. Wait 20 minutes and then start this building action. Or if you want, you can spend 2 Facebook credits to finish now instantly. And 2 Facebook credits, I think, is probably like 20 cents. And, how powerful has impatience proven to be for War Commander? War Commander is one of the best monetizing games on the Facebook platform. Will Harbin, the Kixeye CEO, says so in articles. He told me personally when I was lucky enough to meet him. He gave me some interesting information. Kixeye's got 3 games. They expect to drive $100 million in revenue in 2012. And all 3 of these games heavily monetize impatience. It's not the only emotion, but it's one of the strongest, and it's built into their core loop, and the UI is pretty good on it. Hey, Tony. All right. Next up, Revenge in Mafia Wars by Zynga. This is a picture from Mafia Wars 1, actually. Mafia Wars 2 had a big budget sequel with a lot of the upgrades you would think would, if you're a traditional game designer, you would come into it and think will make it more powerful. I like to show this. This was back from April. Yellow line is Mafia Wars 2. Blue line is Mafia Wars 1. Even for a text-based RPG, it still has a pretty strong following today. And I think Mafia Wars does a particularly good job of monetizing revenge. Core part of Mafia Wars is that you beat people up and steal their stuff. And when you're not a very powerful player, if someone beats you up and steals your stuff and you want revenge, but you're not strong enough to beat them up and take your stuff back, you can put them on the hit list. And that's basically saying, I'm putting a bounty on this player's head, and whoever fills this bounty first, whoever robs from them first gets the cash I've put up. And if you look at top, the biggest one on this list when I took the screenshot was 640 million in in-game currency. Now, what's great about the hit list is that when you're designing a freemium economy, you have to think not only of your sinks, but also of your taps, right? Players get currency for free just by playing Mafia Wars. And if you put too much currency into your system just by playing, then you're not going to drain currency out from players enough that they will then buy more currency with real money. So even though the hit list is driven entirely by earned currency, when you put a bounty on someone's head, Zynga takes 20% of the money out of the economy. So you have to put in 800 million, which is the top at the time I took the screenshot, to get that 640 million bounty. So they just took all that money and drained it out of the economy, whether or not players actually fulfill the bounty. And that's driven by the desire for revenge. Dominance. This is a picture from Bejeweled Blitz, which is one of my favorite casual games. I think it does a great job of being a social network mobile game. It's lots of fun. It never really gets old. And, you know, I'm sure everyone in the room has played a match 3 game. So in Bejeweled Blitz, you play a quick fire 1-minute match 3 game. You get a score, and on Facebook on the right, there's a leaderboard. And the high score leaderboard wipes every week. Now, what's really cool about Bejeweled Blitz is that before each round, you can purchase boosts. After each round, you earn currency by playing that you can spend on boosts. And these boosts give you a leg up. Like, you might start with a ×2 score multiplier, or you might start with a thing that lets you scramble. Little things that you spend, earn currency on, that give you a leg up. Now, there's a really interesting psychological thing about a lot of social network games or any leaderboard-driven game, especially when you know people, right? You have an image of yourself, and in general, you think you're better than the people you know. And you look for validation that you are, in fact, better than the people you know. And one of the ways you can be better than them is scoring higher than them. So I think, oh, David Silverman, I'm better than that jackass. He's such an idiot, God. And he's not. He's a very smart guy. So sorry for picking on him. But you think, I'm better than this person, therefore I must be able to score more than him. And then you get on this treadmill where you're spending your earned currency to dominate this leaderboard that refreshes every week. And eventually you run out of earned currency because it's tuned such that if you're buying boosts every 3 rounds, you won't be making currency fast enough. And then you open up your wallet and spend it so you can top David Silverman, so you can prove to yourself that you're better than him by playing Bejeweled Blitz. Jealousy. Jealousy is an incredibly powerful emotion in real life, and it's an incredibly powerful emotion in games. Sim Social by Playfish, I think, does a great job of this. Here's my dinky little house. I've got my sim. I do basic chores. I earn currency. I decorate my house. Part of what's really important about designing for emotion is that whatever the emotion you're doing, you have to build into the core loop of your game. A lot of times, it can be easy to hide what you want. But part of the core loop of the Sim Social is you visit your friends and you check out their house. And this is John Lee's house. He is a programmer at Gree now on the platform team. And he is like on top of every social game leaderboard that I play. And he's got this awesome house. And so every time I play Sim Social, I go to his house, I see all this cool stuff, and I think, where can I get this cool stuff? Well, of course, you can get it in the store. And what I especially like about the Sim Social store that they get right is that there are items for earned currency and items for paid currency right next to each other. If you read the story on Penny Arcade Report recently about Gasketball, about this game that was number 2 top downloaded iOS game in the US, number 1 in 6 or 7 countries worldwide, but the developers went broke and they're actually homeless right now. The mistake they made was that they hid their monetization away in the game. They hid the ability to spend money. And even though they were number 2, people couldn't figure out how to spend money. Sim Social does a great job of this because you go to the store all the time and the earned currency stuff is right next to the paid currency stuff. But back to the emotion thing, when I see John's stuff and I get jealous, I can spend money on it. Accomplishment. It's a screenshot of the Pogo service by EA. Tony, who I spotted in the audience, can probably tell you how financially successful Pogo has been, or he can't tell you, but he can confirm. But something that the Pogo service does that I love, and this was a social network browser game. I mean, this was a social game and browser game long before Facebook had games as a platform. It's a subscription service with microtransactions on top. It's got all these casual games. Each game is played in a chat room. You've got an avatar. And one of my favorite features is you have badges. Badges work just like trophies on the PS3. They work just like achievements on the Xbox Live. And something that's really cool about badges is that badges come in albums, and you can buy premium badge albums. Now, premium badge albums do not give you new gameplay. They don't give you access to new games. All they give you is new achievements that you can earn. You are spending money for the right to earn achievements. And if you're doing this, you're already paying a monthly subscription fee, right? People love achievements, and especially they love achievements if their friends can see them. So I think Pogo just does a phenomenal job of monetizing this emotion of accomplishment that you get when you fill an achievement. Exhilaration. This is a screenshot of Combat Arms by Nexon. Free-to-play, first-person shooter, looks like Counter-Strike, plays like Counter-Strike, phenomenally successful worldwide. I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and I loved opening Magic card packs. And I'm sure, raise your hand if you've played Magic the Gathering or any other collectible card game. Okay, almost everyone in this room knows what I'm talking about. You open your booster pack and you're looking through, you're wondering what your rare card is. And there's this great moment of tension and release, like what's my rare, uncommon, have it. Shit, I can't do anything with this rare card. I can trade it to somebody maybe, but I don't need it. I'll buy another booster pack, right? That's the collectible card game thing. Combat Arms has mystery crates. They have these crates that are filled with a random list of rare and different guns, and I'm pretty sure they actually published the rarity levels on the different items you can get in the crates, and it fulfills that same effect of buying a Magic the Gathering card pack. Like, even if you don't get something you love, you get a great moment of tension and release. You get a great moment of exhilaration. And hopefully you reward players with super rare items at a high enough level that they keep buying their mystery crates. And in a talk that one of the guys from Combat Arms did at GDC Online last year, he gave a bunch of stats, and I put stats from various points together. And from what I can piece together, they make 15% of their revenue on various forms of these mystery boxes. Belonging. So my final emotion, I think, when I give this talk, a lot of people classify the emotions I've given as kind of negative emotions. You can monetize more positive emotions as well, and one of them I give is belonging. I think I put Auditorium 2 Duet because I know the developers at Cypher Prime. I run into them at conferences. They're really cool guys. I enjoy grabbing a beer with them. They make a great game called Auditorium. But Kickstarter is great at monetizing belonging. I think Obsidian just did this yesterday, right? They raised over $1 million in about 24 hours to bring back the classic RPG. Now, that's incredibly powerful because what they are selling is a sense of community and belonging to a culture. I love RPGs. I support indie games. I love classic RPGs. And I'm angry at publishers like EA and Activision who are always saying no to these developers I love. Right? So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And what's great, my favorite Kickstarters are one that after you pledge, you somehow get involved in the creation process. I think that's one of the most powerful gifts you can give away. Because one, it doesn't cost you time, money, and energy to give. And two, you are making a pact with your audience to let them help you make your game better. So those are my 7 emotions. I'm looking at the time, and I am going to go to theory and practice. So if you like this talk, if you want to see the full version of it, go to FamousAspect.com. The slides are up there with audio for the full version of this talk. My email's up there. You can just email me and ask any questions you have, and I'll put that up there at the end. So let's talk a little bit about putting theory into practice. I said I've managed designers, I've hired designers, I've worked as a designer. I love process, and I always like talks at these sort of conferences to be actionable. I want you to feel like you can take this idea of emotion and actually know at least how I apply it to practice. So you don't have to do this, but this is how I apply it when I'm working on games, and you might want to or do some modified version of this. So At the outset of a game that's a freemium game, I like to write what's called a monetization philosophy document. It's really short. It's 2 to 3 pages at most. And what you do is identify your player types. Who do you think this game is for? And don't worry about fancy marketing studies. Don't worry about demographic info. I worked for Rich Hilleman, the chief creative director of EA, and he said the secret to the great games that he has worked on is he had a specific person in mind. I am making this game, Indy 500, for this person with these qualities. So imagine the player you're making this game for. Who is going to show up? That's your player type. I like to identify a small number of monetization emotions. It doesn't have to be any of the 7 I listed. Whatever you think is right for your game and your player. And I suggest 2 or 3. I think when you're a designer and you're just filled with ideas, like everybody who's a designer is really creative, has a lot of ideas, and you might be inclined to say, well, my game's going to do everything. It's going to hit all the emotions. It's going to monetize everything. And the thing is that I caution people to make a small number of strong choices. If you say I'm going to monetize all emotions, then you're really going to monetize no emotions. You can change the things you've put down in practice later on. Like if you set a strategy and your strategy proves wrong based on data, then shift your strategy, right? But make strong choices. Each emotion should be a razor you can use in the future to evaluate monetization emotions. And I like to use I don't like to write giant game design documents. I like to break things down into 2 to 3 page feature briefs that you write when you're about to start coding something. And so I like to use the razor when writing feature briefs. So let's imagine a game. Who knows Smash TV? Raise your hand if you've played. All right, cool. When I gave this in Europe, I don't think Smash TV came out to the arcades in Europe. Like, nobody in the audience raised their hand, but I got some good ones here. So it's a classic score-based arena shooter, Smash TV. Let's imagine I'm taking Smash TV and I want to bring it to social networks. I want to make a game where you're doing this over-the-top reality TV-based shooter in bite-sized levels played for high score, and you compete against your friends' scores, you earn achievements and medals. Okay. I would pick these 2 emotions, dominance and achievement. I think the people who are going to show up for this game are going to want to top their friends on the leaderboard, and they're going to want a lot of achievements. And those are the emotions that I think are key to making money with this free-to-play product. So let's think about 2 features. If you played Smash TV, you know it's like reality TV. You win big money. It's big money, big prizes, right? That's actually like one of the taglines in the game. So you're like mowing down enemies and you're picking up toasters and big screen TVs and piles of cash, and after every level it shows you all your stuff. So let's say one of my designers comes to me and says, hey, I want to do this feature called the Smash Pad. Right? You're already picking up all this money and home goods, so in between levels you have your Smash Pad. It's this room that you decorate with your stuff, and you can buy more stuff, and you can visit your friends' Smash Pads, and you can either bro out or blow out. If you bro out, you like hang out, you have a beer. If you blow out, you like plant dynamite in their armoire or something. And our monetization is going to be that the player can buy premium home goods using the game's purchase currency. I would cut this feature immediately, right? Yes, it does a good job of tapping into something from the source material, but this is a mechanic from SimSocial that I think monetizes on jealousy. And I don't think those players are showing up for a top-down shooter, right? So it might be a great feature, and in fact, it's a proven feature from other games. I just don't think it's the right feature for our game. So let's talk about another feature. This one is Phone a Friend. So let's say, it's reality TV based. So each level, I have buttons on the screen to phone a friend. Each one's a super ability with the cooldown timer. So like maybe one is Lifeline. I use it and it gives me automatically 200% health. And every time I use a phone a friend, it uses up the Smash token. And I earn a Smash token every time I get an achievement, but I can buy more Smash tokens if I run out. I love it. This feature is perfect for our game, right? The super abilities will help players earn the high scores that help them dominate against their friends. It'll help them earn more achievements. It's consumable based, and I love consumable based freemium economies. I'm after having done permanent virtual goods, I'm very allergic to permanent virtual goods. And on top of this, super abilities are for free and for paying players. This isn't pay to win. It's just if you want more access to it, you have to pay. Something else I like is something called the business model canvas. It's an interesting tool for business model innovation. What it does is it helps you imagine all the factors of a business model simply on a single page and give you a holistic view of your service, right? So there's a link. You can go. They've got a video. They've got a sample. And these are the different things. And I filled this out for Smash TV Saga, and it took me like 15 minutes. And so you don't need to drive every decision based on this business model canvas, but it will help you think about your game as a service. And that's really important, especially if you come from a packaged goods background, if you're used to selling games in boxes, right? Like, a game as an ongoing service with your player is a lot bigger than a box that you sell once. So, yeah. I think that's really all the time I have except for some Q&A. So hopefully you found that quick micro version of the talk valuable, and I'll answer any questions that you have. Oh, yeah. So there's a really great story when I give the full version I open it up with about, in summary, Katy Perry's Teenage Dream was the best-selling album of the year, the only album since Michael Jackson's Bad to have 5 #1 singles, and the publisher didn't make any money on it. And the reason they didn't make any money is because they were using an outmoded business model. Katy Perry made tons of money because her revenue comes in a small part from album sales and in a large part from touring and merchandising. So Katy Perry, if you looked at the business model canvas, right, too far back, here we go. Like, the publisher was focused on one box, and she's focused on the whole box, and Capital EMI isn't sure if they made money on the top thing. Like, can you imagine if Activision was like, hey, we released Call of Duty. It sold 18 million copies, and we didn't make any money. Like, it would be unbelievable. So it's just my word of warning of, like, paying attention to your business model is important as a game designer. It's business model generation. Just Google business model canvas. It'll come up instantly.
So that monetization philosophy document, like, do you present that to third parties or investors or other partners? Sort of businessman, or is that like a separate thing for yourself?
That's really for myself. I wouldn't necessarily show that to somebody. Like, if I'm pitching a publisher for money, I show them I want to show them the demo. Like, I try and stick away from, like, in EA, I had to do a lot of financial planning and, like, P&L and projections, and my opinion now is that as an indie, that was a waste of time. So, like, if I'm going to a publisher, I want to show them software. Like, that, all that stuff that I talked about is for me to make sure I have a strategy that I've thought of. And it only takes a day or two. It's just like, take a day at the beginning to figure out how you're going to make money.
I mean, I agree with that. Like, I feel like the projection stuff, like, everyone already acknowledges that, like, those aren't going to be accurate at all. I just don't really get. I mean, I get why you do it, but it seems like it's the time. So
Yeah.
that whole process seems a lot more creative.
Great. Any other questions?
I have one.
Oh.
It has to do with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And where would you place something where people are like they're into figuring out a problem? Like, what kind of emotion like that? If they're trying to, they're actually enjoying the fact of figuring out how to get over a certain challenge or problem.
Problem solving?
Yeah. Can you repeat this question?
Sure. So the question was, if your gameplay is around figuring out problems, what emotion would I tap that into? I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think a lot of the most successful puzzle games are... Actually, no. So Angry Birds is about figuring out problems. It's about figuring out physics problems. So they've made a really fun game around that, but then they're monetizing achievement. They're monetizing, I mean, they monetize more levels, but really what they're monetizing is getting the gold star. So if your players like to figure out problems, make it so that there are a number of different things they have to figure out to successfully complete a level. Hope that helps. There was a question back there.
What would you say are your top 5 tools for freelance app designers in regards to monetization?
The question was, as a freelance designer, what are my key tools for in-app monetization? My key tool is listening to the client and figuring out what their vision for the game is. And I know that sounds kind of trite, but in all honesty, I feel like if I go in and try and impose my way of thought on their game, in all honesty, I work 5 hours a week for someone and they work 80 hours a week on their product. So what I really try and do is figure out what their goals are, or like what their vision of the game is. And so like a lot of times, people, like when I talk about that monetization philosophy doc, I find that teams maybe haven't figured out what their goal of the game is. And I have another thing about like writing like a feature treatment or a game treatment. And so I like to try and help people figure out what their goals are. And then I look for examples of other games like the 7 that I point out and say, is it like this? Is it like this? Like, Kixeye is really successful. Do you want to do this? This game is really successful. Do you want to do this? So it's about listening and then finding examples that they can point to. And just as like a caveat, the majority of the freelance that I do is for people who haven't released games before. So for me, a lot of it is helping them find examples. All right. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you for staying for this last session. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah.